welcome to our segment today, the Irish American Women in Politics. This is a conversation with Trina Vargo. We do have a student with us today that will be in conversation with Trina. Ceara is a second-year student at University College Dublin, studying international relations and politics. Ceara is a Global Excellence Scholarship recipient and originally from Pennsylvania. Ceara is very active in her Irish American community in the Philadelphia area, as she was the first chair of the Forja Club, the first one outside of Ireland, and has many family connections to County Cavan and County Donegal. Ceara, you're very welcome here. Thanks for taking this on, and I'll pass it over to you to get started.
All right. So Trina Vargo is the president and founder of the U.S.-Ireland Alliance. She has many years of experience in politics, including working for Senator Edward Kennedy and served as his foreign policy advisor during the Northern Ireland peace process. She's also the author of a book, Shenanigans, and she created the George J. Mitchell Scholarship Program, which sends future American students to Irish universities for a year of graduate study. These are just a few of her many accomplishments, and she's also from Pennsylvania. So I wanted to start off the conversation by asking you, throughout your career in politics and international relations, you have a history of working to connect the US and Ireland. Beyond the political sector, do you have any personal connections to Ireland?
Well, first, Ceara, I would say congratulations on your scholarship and getting to study in Dublin and at UCD for 4 years. I'm sure it's exciting and you're having an amazing time. And I'm sorry that your whole generation had to go through COVID for a bit of this time, but hopefully the rest of it will be, you'll be out there and enjoying the place a lot more. So congratulations. For my own connections, yes and no. My mother's side of the family's name is Doherty, and I'm still trying to trace the ancestry. They're probably, John Hume used to swear that meant that they were from Donegal. And probably it seems likely, but they were in the US, in Pennsylvania. We're all from Pennsylvania here. They were in Pennsylvania. I can already trace back in Pennsylvania to like maybe the late 1600s. So nobody was singing Danny Boy in my house when I was growing up. That had all been, we'd all become assimilated by then. But it was when I went to work for Senator Kennedy and was doing the whole Northern Ireland issue and Irish issues that I became really interested in the place.
It's funny. My mom's family is also from Donegal, so
it's a great place. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah. So how did you come up with the idea for the U.S.-Ireland Alliance?
Well, and by the way, I should mention the new U.S. ambassador to Ireland, I believe, has ancestry Donegal. So Donegal's a popular place today. How did I start the Alliance? All the years I was working for Senator Kennedy for about 10 years, and it was all during the time of the peace process. And every time the Taoiseach would leave a meeting, or somebody at any Irish meeting we would have, when they would leave, he would always say to me, the Irish never get their act together like the Jewish Americans do and the Greek Americans do. And what are they going to do when we're not around anymore? And I knew what he meant. And it's one of those things that you could only understand it if you sat there and you saw it. But he was talking about how his generation, there were a lot of politicians that were very interested in Ireland. Him, Tip O'Neill, Pat Moynihan, Chris Dodd, Senator Biden back then. But he realized that generation was kind of fading. And demographics have shown that the interest in Ireland, I know there's a lot of, I call it happy talk around the connections, but it's actually, if you look over time and you've witnessed it over decades, there's a decline in the relationship. And so when I left him, I thought, can we, and it's a question that I still have, and I'm not convinced about, which I can get back to, but can we build a new generation of interest in the island of Ireland when we're past those demographic connections of, like, you have family there, right? We get more, and most people in America don't have that anymore as directly as you might. So it's a serious question. I get in trouble for saying that I doubt that it may be there, because I've watched what I've been trying to do over the last 20, 25 years, and I just don't see the interest that there used to be. But I left him thinking, okay, I know what you mean about a declining interest, and I'm going to see what we can do about that. And the first thing really was the creation of the Mitchell Scholarship Program, because when I was working in 93, I guess it was, to make sure that Jerry Adams got that visa to come to the United States that led to the IRA ceasefire, all of that sort of the beginnings of the peace process, I realized that I was constantly arguing against people in the State Department and in various branches of government who'd been to Oxford on the Roads, and they had all these direct connections into the UK. But there just wasn't that for Ireland at that level of government. And also I went to McGill in Montreal to study as a graduate student because I'd won a Rotary scholarship. And I knew the value, as you're understanding, of studying abroad for a while. So I just simply thought, well, why can't we create a competitive scholarship in the US that lets future American leaders go to Ireland like they traditionally go to the UK? And so that's how it sort of all came about.
And then speaking of the scholarship, so I mean, you came up with the idea and you created it. So why did you decide to name it after George J. Mitchell and maybe not like yourself or someone else?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it's something that, to be honest, I've only thought about recently. And I think it speaks to a lot of big questions, like you're talking, it's about International Women's Day and things like that. When I created it, I had just left Kennedy's office. And I have to confess, like it would have never occurred to me for 5 seconds would I've ever thought, oh, maybe I'll name it after myself. And that's I hate to say it, but it's a very female sort of thing. If you read like Sheryl Sandberg in Lean In, which I found an interesting book when I read it at the time, it's still interesting, but she talked about how men volunteer for everything. They always put themselves out there, and women were a little more like, let's stay in the background. And so when I was creating it, I just thought, okay, I have to name this after somebody. Who do I name it after? Senator Mitchell had just accomplished the Good Friday Agreement. So I thought, okay, I'll just ask him. And it was that simple. I just said, hey, do you mind if I name the scholarship after you? And he said, yeah, fine, go ahead. Like it was that simple and that not really thought through in a deeper way. But now what I find really interesting is something that I didn't even think about at the time. And that is, I'm trying to figure out, the scholarship's incredibly successful. It is, it's one of the most prestigious in the US. Last year, it was harder to win a Mitchell than to win the Rhodes or to get into Harvard. I mean, it's that competitive and that sought after. So it's already proven itself over the last 25 years in an unlikely way, given if you look at university rankings, like we should always, be losing to Oxford and Cambridge if you're talking about university rankings, but there's a lot of reasons why that's not the case. But I'm always trying to figure out, can we it takes an endowment, right? You need a big pot of money so that you can live off the interest, and these scholarships go on for forever. And I'm getting to the bottom of, it's either we're going to have the endowment and it goes on after me, or we don't have that money because there isn't sufficient interest and I'm the person that wraps it up. And because I've been thinking about that a lot lately, one of the things I went back and I looked at the other scholarships that are in our space, and I thought, well, how did they do it? And I noticed every single major prestigious scholarship in the US is named for a man. And every one of them, except ours, was funded by the man who founded them. So if you think about it, Cecil Rhodes created the Rhodes. He had a fortune. He gave his money. He named a scholarship after himself. Bill Gates, Cambridge, he had the money, gave a scholarship, names it after himself. Stephen Schwartzman, there's a big scholarship into China. Had the money, gave 200 million of his own money, named it after himself. And it goes on and on. Knight Hennessy, a great scholarship at Stanford, was founded by the guy at Nike, Phil Knight, and he attached the name of the president of Stanford at the time to his scholarship. So all of these scholarships have, often hundreds of millions of dollars, and they started on the personal wealth of the founder, who was a man. And I didn't think about that at the time, because maybe I wouldn't have started the scholarship if I thought that's what it takes to make one of these go on forever. But I kind of felt like if you build it, they will come. So now we've built it. And the question is there somebody out there who has the kind of wealth that wants to make sure that it goes on long after I do? And I'd be delighted if it was a female philanthropist who said, I'm going to give you the money and I want my name on it too. Or even if it's a man who says, I want my wife's name on it, or my mother's name on it, or whatever. But it's just an interesting thing I find, even when you're out there trying to raise money, there is still this disparity between men and women in terms of the control of the wealth and who you approach and who has the ability to do it. So in short, I didn't think of it in the moment. And now I realize that that's the way often women are. We don't think, wow, I should put my name on it. It's my idea.
Yeah. And then kind of like segueing there. So are there any particular women, especially in Irish or American politics, that have inspired you in your career?
It's interesting. I hope things will be a lot different for your generation, because when I was young, there weren't that many women in, those positions to say, like now somebody can say, I see young girls who want to be like Kamala Harris, right? Mm-hmm. Or I think, the two Irish presidents, both Mary McAleese and Mary Robinson, I thought did a great job. I'm only sorry that, you've never had in Ireland a female Taoiseach any more than we've had a female president. So I think and I hope that the role models will be there more for your generation than say they were there for women coming up in my generation.
Definitely. Yeah. I definitely feel like in the more recent year, there's definitely been more women in politics, or just like women in leadership roles that women or like women of my age and younger can definitely like look up to.
The first, I would say, you won't even probably remember this name. The first campaign I ever got involved in, I was in college when Walter Mondale was running against Ronald Reagan, and I got very involved in, they were called being an advance person, like you would help in advance of a visit of a candidate. And the female vice presidential candidate was a woman named Geraldine Ferraro. And it was the first time that had ever happened. And so I got really excited in politics because I saw this woman role model. It's like, people talk about this right now in terms of diversity. You have to see it to see yourself being that person. Mm-hmm. And Geraldine Ferraro was the one in my generation.
Yeah, I also in high school, I've always had an interest in politics, but in high school I helped canvass for my local congresswoman, and she was definitely like someone that I just felt like I could see myself in more than I could see myself in the position of like a male congressman from my area. Yeah, it's definitely like, it's nice to be able to see someone and like look up to them and see that like that can be you in the future.